This is a screencast on developing Android apps the easy way. We're going to be using Android Studio 2. In addition to the standard installation of Android Studio 2, we've also going to install some plugins. And the plugins I'm choosing now are the Extend and Xtext plugins. These provide support for the Extend language in IntelliJ and Android Studio. And the way it's done is by going to Manage Repositories and adding the URL for the Extend and Xtext plugins, which you can find on the Xtendroid website, linked below. So once these three plugins are installed, we're ready to go. So we're going to start a new Android Studio project. We're going to call it Reddit, so we're going to do a sample Reddit application, and we'll just pick the standard defaults, phone and tablet, an empty activity, and we'll just leave the name as main activity. So Android Studio will then go and build up the skeleton of our application. We will end up with a standard project and a main activity written in standard Java. And what we're going to do now is just inspect this project layout. So as you can see, it's pretty standard. We've got a main activity with its layout. Now let's convert this to the Extend language, which gives us a lot more expressive power. So you'll find an action called convert to extend. So this converts any Java file to extend. The syntax is pretty similar, except as you'll see, we can get rid of some semicolons and so on. As soon as we've done that, extend allows us to configure the project to use extend, so we'll just accept that. And what will happen is that extend will add some configuration to the Gradle build file. So we'll just let Gradle start building this. Let's go have a look at that Gradle build file so that we can see what has been added. So as you can see, the main activity is now a .extend file rather than a .java file. And we do end up with an error when we start this. This is because I'm using the latest snapshot of Extend and it doesn't seem to be available in JCenter. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to the Gradle build file, and I'm just going to change the Extend library version to 9.1, which is the previous release, and we'll try again. And as you can see, it is done now, and this time we don't have any errors. Great. So now let's go and see what our project looks like. So we've got some test files, and we've got our main activity, which is now an extend file, which is very similar to Java, but as you can see, we've got some new keywords like override and so on. Now we're going to add the Xtendroid library to our project. This gives us a lot of power because it's basically a DSL for Android. And we'll see shortly what that means. So once I've added Xtendroid, it compiles, everything's fine. So now I'm going to go back to my main activity, and let's start using the power of Xtendroid. So now we don't need to write all of this boilerplate code. We'll just use a annotation called Android activity, which is part of Xtendroid. And you can give it a layout, like r.layout. Whatever layout file you want it to load. So in this case, let's just import the R class and use layout.activity_main. This will load the main activity into our activity. And instead of using an onCreate method, I'm just going to use this annotation called @onCreate, which basically says run this method when all the widgets have been loaded and are ready. So this runs before onStart, so basically after the setup in onCreate. Now we've got a whole lot of, as you can see, code completions. And what we want to do is we want to go back to our layout and maybe add some sort of widget that we can interact with code. So if we switch now to our layout, and we'll just use the XML view, and let's just format this because it's in a bit of a mess. So we'll just reformat this code. And now we can add an ID to this text view, and let's call it text view 1, for example. This allows us to interact with this widget from our activity code. Okay, so if we switch back, what's amazing now is that we can just press Control Space and we get code completion, and it automatically picks up text view 1. It does this at edit time by reading the layout file that you've linked in the Android activity above. So here we can just say textview1.text equals, which is equivalent of calling textview1.setText with hello Xtendroid. So now we can actually run this. So let's call run app and give it an emulator to run on. And once the emulator is started up, we should see our application. Okay, you can see Gradle building in the background, but after a while of not seeing anything, we kind of realize, wait a minute, there might have been a compile error. Okay, so nothing's happened. So we're going to look at the Gradle output and sorry, switch back to that. And we see that, oh, the build failed because of some duplicate files. Now you'll see on the Xtendroid website, the sample Gradle.build that's provided adds a package options to avoid this problem. So what we're going to do is we're just going to copy and paste that into our Gradle build file inside the Android block. So it's these packaging options to exclude these files that are included in some of the libraries. Okay, so once we've done that, everything compiles, and let's run this again. Let's always use our emulator. And as you can see now, it should run. So now our activity is loaded and it says hello Xtendroid. That's great. We managed to do this with very little code. Our first build did take a little bit of time, but that should improve on subsequent builds. So let's go and add a button that we can interact with. So I'm just going to add a button and we'll give it an ID of something like button hello. Now we should give it some text. Let's just say hello for now. I'm going to use underscores here because that also works. So underscores get converted into camel casing. So if we go back to our activity now and type button, control space, and you'll see it picks up button hello. So it just magically appears. Now we can add an on-click listener. This is the same as calling set on-click listener. Normally you'd have to provide a anonymous inner class, but in Xtend we can just give it a lambda, and the lambda gets automatically converted into the anonymous inner class, just like Java 8. The lambda syntax in Xtend uses square brackets, which allows you to clearly see the difference between lambdas and normal code blocks. I've imported this alert utils because it allows me to do things like toast, which is much shorter than toast.makeText and so on. So you'll see that toast is now magically available because we statically imported the alert utils class. There are quite a few other methods that are very convenient in there. So I'm just going to hit run, and instant run will still work because Xtend just compiles to normal Java code, and as you saw, the hello button worked. So this was a look at setting up Android Studio for using Xtend and the Xtendroid DSL library. But it was a very simple example. So in the next parts, we will look at some of the advanced features that Xtendroid provides.